This is Untitled, the Atari 8-bit podcast.
The whole thing was such a great idea, having users write programs. I mean, it was so ahead of its time.
I'm Kevin Savitz, and this is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. Paul Lewandowski was in high school when he wrote Puzzler, which was published by Atari Program Exchange and which won the Atari Star Award in fall 1983 for first prize in the learning category. Puzzler is a game that shows you a picture on the screen, chops it into equally sized squares, and scrambles them. Then the player uses the joystick to try to put the picture back together, like one of those plastic puzzles where you slide numbers around to put them in order. Puzzler has 3 difficulty levels. 4x4 was easy, 8x8 was hard, and 10x10 was insane. This interview took place on December 9th, 2015. We are going to talk about Puzzler and any other projects you did.
There it is.
You have it. Look at that.
I actually have it.
Still in the plastic wrap. Nice.
And my star.
Ooh, your Atari Star logo.
Yeah.
Hold it up. I'm going to get a screenshot. Here. Screenshotting. Selecting the thing. Keep smiling. Got it. Perfect. Got it. Thank you.
Those have been in my basement for a while.
They should be up on your wall, proudly displayed.
Well, that's why I brought them to work. I'm hanging them up here.
Nice. I bet that plaque is older than some of the people that you work with.
It is. In fact, I shared that this morning with one of my colleagues here. Said, "Yeah, that's older than me." But this one I've actually I've had in my office hung all the time. Like wherever I move, different jobs, I always bring it and hang it because it's just good conversation starter, but but also just kind of cool.
Excellent. All right, so Puzzler, let's see, won first prize in the learning category in the fall 1983 APX contest. So tell me, before the beginning, tell me how you got started with Atari computers. First time you saw one, how'd you learn to program? Tell me everything.
Well, it was obviously 1980, I think it might have been 82 or 83, computers were just coming into the home, and there was a shop. I grew up in Lewiston, Maine, which is not a small town, but it's a mill town in the sort of central Maine. And we had a computer store, and they had a number of different types of computers, and they had Atari computers. I had a 2600 game system. And I think towards the end of that, they had issued like a basic programming cartridge for the 2600, and that got me interested in programming. And then I saw the Atari 400 with the one with the old pressure-sensitive keyboard. And I think I begged and begged and begged and got it as a Christmas present or something, which was a huge one. It was my brother and me, so we had to share it. Although my brother didn't use it as much as I ended up using it, but. So I ended up teaching myself basic programming and working on that computer and just having a lot of fun with it.
Nice. Right, but you didn't just learn basic. I mean, you clearly taught yourself machine language.
Machine language and logo. There was like a logo cartridge you could get where you could do a lot with fractals, which didn't come into Puzzler, but I was fascinated with it. And it's funny because this was happening all in my junior year of high school, so the whole college search was happening, and what was I going to do? And I'd always wanted to be an architect, and everyone was like, well, you should go into computer science because you like computers. And I'm like, I want to be an architect. So when I was using computers, I was really interested in the graphics. So one of the ways that Puzzler came about is I wrote a program to allow me to draw. There was I think it was PC Connection magazine was out at the time. It still might be. I don't even know if it's still around. But they had an article, or someone had an article about how to build a light pen using some Radio Shack parts. And you could point to the screen and draw rudimentary stuff. So I wrote some software that allowed me to draw pictures. And then I started thinking, gee, it'd be fun. These are like puzzle pictures. What about that kind of game where you can make something? And it's sort of, Puzzler just became a kind of a program that grew out of my looking to develop drawing programs really for the computer, which I was really, that's why I like the Atari computer to start with, because of the graphics. It had the best graphics anywhere. So I was really looking at graphics back in 1983, and ended up going to architecture school and design school, and minored in studio arts, but still always used computers. And I ended up going to Rensselaer Polytechnic, which was a huge computer school. So we had great facilities, and we had some early 3D modeling systems. So I stayed in computers, but Puzzler was really my exercise in working with graphics as much as I could.
Nice. So you're calling me from work. Are you an architect today?
I'm an architect, and I also am. I do a lot of interior design work and some product design and some fashion design as well. I just everything is about. I guess design is my passion, so I just look at it in many different ways.
Nice. So, so you're in high school. You taught yourself assembly language, and which seems. When I was a high school student, I don't think I could have done that.
Well, it was like you kind of had to, because there was no. I mean, you had to learn the raw languages to program. I mean, it was just that's how it was. I remember I ended up taking basic programming. I think it was my junior year, and I had already submitted Puzzler, and I'd already written it and done all this. So I got an A in that class. It was, and that's all they offered at the time. And it was on TRS 80s, and they had black and white screens and no color. And I remember my professor sort of or my teacher in school was like, "Oh yeah, those Atari, they're game machines." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're game machines. It's great."
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun in the class. So this was kind of a summer. Like my friends and I would hang out. My father always turned our garage into sort of a rumpus room in the summer, and that was our domain. And it had like carpeting and like a screen door or something. But we would just like put on music and like I would program and test it out on all my friends, and they would play the game and see, how to figure out what was going wrong and, what needed to be fixed. And I remember I also wrote some music software to be able to use I turned the keyboard into a piano. Again, today that sounds like, oh my God, everybody does that, but there wasn't a software package like that. So I used that to record some very, very basic like songs to play while the puzzles were going on. And it's funny, I heard them. Well, not years ago. I heard them again. They were pretty bad, but but I wanted to recreate music to go with the pictures, so that that was the whole thing about Atari, was that it was graphics and sound, and it seemed like, let's see how we can play with that.
You did all this on the 400s.
I did this all on a 400 with the other keyboard. I had hacked it to bring it up to 64K, which again sounds weird to say that today, because the 48K was not enough. I remember my mother saw me and I was soldering in some jumper cables on the motherboard, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I need more memory, Mom." So it was, So, and then I did eventually you could buy a replacement keyboard that was a real touch keyboard. So I got that, and I still had that 400 for a long time. When I won the contest, it came with some equipment, which was great. And I got at that time, I think it was the 1200 that was out. And they were supposed to be releasing a 1400 that has 2 built-in disk drives, looked like an Apple IIc. That's the one I wanted, but it never came out.
Right.
So I got the 1200, and I got like a couple printers, and it was a nice. And I got a touch tablet. I got all kinds of great accessories that Atari made at the time. So that kind of kept me playing with different things.
Nice. So before tell me about submitting the game. You sent it in. Did you get any feedback? Did they want anything fixed or? Oh
yeah, there was a lot of things. I submitted it. I read. I can't remember. It might have been the Antics, the magazine that you got as an Atari computer owner, and I saw the contest, and I thought, hey, I wrote this software. I should submit it. That'll be fun. And then I heard back from them, and they wanted me to make it more positive. I guess when someone didn't win, I would say like, oh, I don't think I said anything as crass as you're a loser, but you didn't win or whatever. And instead they wanted to say things like, try again, you're doing good, or, you're doing well, or whatever. It was, which understandably for kids, for software, I mean, that made a lot of sense. Not something that I was necessarily thinking about at 17, but now that I'm a father, I think about it all the time. Like, how do you raise a kid and be positive? But they wanted those things changed, and then some of the images they asked for some more pictures, and I had originally wrote the program so that you could upload different sets of pictures. So you would come, with the photo editing software, or not photo editing, but drawing program, so that you could then draw your own pictures and then upload them into the puzzle game and use them. That just was too complicated, they thought, and too much for the program. So we took that feature out, and then just sort of settled on, I think it was either 8 or 10 images that ultimately became the puzzle game. So
and I think you could load in other stuff made with Micropainter.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. So there was some right, and a lot of the software that was out, I didn't know a lot about. So I was just kind of writing the software that I needed to do the things I needed to do, because it was fun. It's just what I like to do, I guess. So.
Yeah. All right. So they accepted your thing, and then how did you find out you had won the contest?
It was a letter, back in 1983. I got a letter in the mail that said, I don't have the letter. I wish I still did. It was, congratulations, you've won the first prize in the learning category. And I was like, wow, I never expected that. I never, I thought, you enter the contest, it'd be kind of fun. And it was also kind of magical because I'm this kid in Maine. I'd never really left the state. And this is like, coming from California, and it's like, the big state of California. And, talking about when it was coming out, and then had some more, talking more about the process going forward, and that I'd be getting an award plaque, and which I showed you a few minutes ago. I don't know, it was sort of like, I liken it to my college acceptance letter. It was the same kind of thing. You get a letter in the mail, and it's just great news, and I was just like really excited. I in fact included it in my college application. I thought that might have gotten me into school. I don't know.
Couldn't hurt.
Yeah, didn't hurt.
Nice. So did they? And then they let you choose what you wanted as far as hardware.
Yeah, I think it was $2,000 worth of merchandise, and then there was a royalty package, which wasn't the biggest part of it. It sold decent, but it wasn't like a big hit. But that was okay. The $2,000 worth of computer equipment was just awesome. It was like a great shopping spree of picking out all the things that I've been like looking and Atari, what's the new Atari stuff that's out, and I'd be like looking at things, and I picked out some great stuff. Some like I think I got they had a daisy wheel printer. I got a dot matrix printer. I got a couple disk drives. I kind of took me a few times to get everything I wanted, like sort of fit into the budget. But then you just ordered it, and then I remember it took forever to get the package. I was like hunting down the UPS truck, and you couldn't check online, and you couldn't. I called them a few times, but they're like, "Oh no, it's coming." But that's what I seem to remember. That's what I was most excited about, was all the equipment and how fun that would be, and having multiple computers, and so that was the great part. And then there was a contract to sign, and then the royalty. And I remember I got my first check. I think it was a few $100s, which back in 1983 was pretty darn cool. Still is kind of cool, actually.
Sure.
Yes. So that was that, and it's been this. I don't know, when you first contacted me, I was telling you, it's like to this day on my resume, I still have the Atari Star Award as one of my awards, and I've been fortunate enough as an architect to design buildings that have won some awards, and it's kind of when I list those, and at the bottom I always have the Atari Star, because that was my first award. It was like it was just really I don't know, special. I think the whole thing was such a great idea. The whole APX, having users write programs. I mean, it was so ahead of its time. I mean, there are a lot of the companies now that are doing, whether it's crowdfunded or whatever. I mean, this was kind of like the first crowdfunding kind of process, or one of the first anyway. So you look back at it, it's like they were really at the forefront here with this whole, users writing for users thing.
Yeah. So why was that the only APX program that you wrote?
It was. I wrote other programs and did other things on the computer, but I never really pulled things together to submit. Right after that, I did my senior year. I got into college, into architecture school, and that was architecture an education architecture is rather rigorous. It's 5 years, and it's pretty intense, and I loved that. I really enjoyed it. But I was using computers on campus. I brought my Atari computer with me to school, but I didn't do a lot of programming on it. It was more playing games, with roommates, and then I never wrote anything more that I submitted. It just sort of moved away into the world of design, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Do you still have an Atari?
I do not have an Atari. I wish I had an Atari. I remember the day that I got rid of my Atari computer. I think I was like just out of college, maybe 3-4 years, and I was like moving, and I couldn't take a lot of stuff, and I'm like, oh well, I don't use this anymore. And by that time, I think I had a PC, an IBM PC at the time, so I got rid of it, and I wish I had not gotten rid of it, because I've played a lot with some of the emulators online, but it's been a while. I don't know. I keep really busy, so I guess there's just only time for a certain amount of things. But I've looked at them. I mean, someday I'll have another. I'll get one. I'll get a vintage 400 with the original keyboard.
Excellent. All right. I think I'm about done. If you could send a message to the kids who played your game back in the day and now they're grown-ups listening to this podcast, what would you tell them?
Gee, that's a good one. I don't know. First of all, I hope they enjoyed it. When I look back at it, I think, wow, that was such a simple game. It's like you look at the complexity of like Angry Birds or something that was like another, recent hit, and I'm like, I'm just hoping that people enjoyed it and had the fun that I did of playing with the graphics and the sound of the Atari computers, because that to me was what was so special about them, and I hope that's what they enjoyed about it too.
Nice. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Good talking to you.
If you enjoyed these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.